Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, the UN General Assembly adopts resolution calling for immediate sustained humanitarian truce in Gaza. Israel expands ground operations in Gaza as airstrikes intensify. In sports, South Africa beat Pakistan by 1 wicket in a thrilling ICC Cricket World Cup encounter. The United Nations General Assembly has passed a resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian truce between Israel and Hamas and demanding aid access to Gaza. A total of 120 countries voted in favor of the resolution. 14 countries voted against, including Israel and the United States, while 45 others abstained. The resolution also demands all parties comply with international humanitarian law and continuous sufficient and unhindered provision of life-saving supplies and services for the civilians trapped inside the enclave. It also calls for immediate and unconditional release of all civilians held captive, as well as demanding their safety, well-being and humane treatment in compliance with international law. The resolution stresses the need to urgently establish a mechanism to ensure the protection of the Palestinian civilian population and the protection of United Nations and all humanitarian facilities, as well as to ensure the unhindered movement of aid convoys. The United States has reiterated that Israel has the right to defend itself. Speaking at the UN General Assembly, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said that the international humanitarian law must be respected throughout Gaza and the region by all actors.
The United States has made clear in both public and private conversations that as Israel exercises its right and indeed its responsibility to defend its people against the terrorist group, it must do so in line with the rules of war. There are no law-free zones in war. International humanitarian law must be respected throughout Gaza and the region by all actors.
Deputy Permanent Representative of India at the United Nations, Ambassador Yoshna Patel, delivered the explanation of India's vote at the 10th UNGA Emergency Special Session on Friday. She stressed, in fact, the Assembly to adopt a zero-tolerance approach to terrorism.
India is deeply concerned at the deteriorating security situation and astounding loss of civilian lives in the ongoing conflict. The escalation of hostilities in the region will only exacerbate the humanitarian crisis. It is necessary for all parties to display the utmost responsibility. India has always supported a negotiated two-state solution to the Israel-Palestine issue, leading to the establishment of a sovereign, independent, and viable state of Palestine, living within secure and recognized borders, side by side in peace with Israel. For this, we urge the parties to de-escalate, eschew violence, and work towards creating conditions for an early resumption of direct peace negotiations.
Israel said that its ground forces were expanding their activity in Gaza on Friday night amid heavy bombardment of the enclave by its air force, which cut off internet and phone services. Israel's chief military spokesperson told media that the army is prepared on all fronts to preserve Israel's security. Israel has warned people in Gaza to move to the south region.
In the last hours, we intensified the attacks in Gaza. The Air Force was conducting extensive strikes on tunnels and other terrorists' infrastructure. In addition to the attacks carried out in the last few days, ground forces are expanding their operations tonight. The military is operating powerfully on all dimensions in order to achieve the goals of the war.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has appealed for the monitoring of aid deliveries to Gaza Strip to be adjusted to allow many more trucks to enter Gaza without delay. The UN chief has welcomed the growing global consensus for a humanitarian pause in the conflict and repeated his call for humanitarian ceasefire.
The humanitarian system in Gaza is facing a total collapse with unimaginable consequences for more than 2 million civilians. As the bombing intensifies, needs are growing ever more critical and colossal. The verification system for the movement of goods through Rafah crossing must be adjusted to allow for more trucks to enter Gaza without delay. We must meet the expectations and the core needs of civilians in Gaza. Life-saving humanitarian aid, food, water, medicine, fuel must be allowed to reach all civilians swiftly, safely, and at scale. Without a fundamental change, the people of Gaza will face an unprecedented avalanche of human suffering. Everyone must assume their responsibilities. This is a moment of truth. History will judge us.
Pope Francis presided at a special prayer service for peace in the Middle East and also other areas of conflict on Friday. He led thousands of people in St. Peter's Basilica and many others following on television and social media. The Pope has also deplored the plight of civilians in Gaza and has called for humanitarian corridors and respect for human rights in the enclave. The Jewish community in Berlin held a show of solidarity for the hostages kidnapped from Israel by Hamas on Friday. A festively laid Shabbat table with 220 empty chairs was set up in front of the Jewish Community Center in Berlin. Several hundred people followed the invitation to pray together at the beginning of Shabbat. Pictures of the abductors were also on display. In fact, pictures of the abductees were also on display. In the past few days, memorial services for the hostages were held in synagogues throughout Berlin. Calling for the release of Israelis held hostage by Hamas in Gaza on Friday, a visual tribute was displayed in Israel that showed scaled-up photos of elderly people and a graffiti mural depicting distressed children. A sign showing photos of elderly people, their names and ages were erected on the side of a building. Israel said 229 Israelis and foreign nationals were confirmed held by Hamas in Gaza. DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh has filed this report from Jerusalem on the ground situation in Gaza.
All reports coming out of Gaza are saying that the situation is really bad. 12 out of 35 hospitals have stopped functioning. 5 could close any time, and they're saying we're not admitting old new patients, and we're only taking injuries of the shelling, and we now have to release patients. Incubators are not working. Oxygen cylinders are finishing. All machines like dialysis machines, etc., that run on electricity or power supply are not working because generators don't have fuel to run them, etc. So it's a bad situation out there, and add to that the displacement, and people have displaced to the south. There were missile attacks in the southern Israel as well. So it is a very, very bad situation for the civilians. Israel insists that it's hitting Hamas targets inside the Gaza Strip, but the fact remains that civilians unwittingly are the collateral damage or the casualties. What collateral damage is a politically correct word, but there are people dying. So that is what the situation is. Internet was stopped. I was in West Bank and Ramallah and areas around that in the Palestinian territory last night, and I met a lot of people who had come from Gaza to visit, and they said they can't get in touch with the near and dear ones. There were women crying, children wailing, literally wailing, old people saying, I don't know where my son is because internet is cut, and so the communication channels are cut. Food is not there, is in great shortage, essential medicines. So it's a bad scenario out there. And even all this is happening, the UN is saying that the aid going in is far too short of what is required. In fact, the UN chief has gone on to the extent of saying that the monitoring of the aid that's going in is delaying that aid reaching the people.
All right, up next we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the globe. Shoppers at a supermarket in Japan no longer need to check out their items. Customers need to download a smartphone app that gives them a QR code. When entering the section, they let a scanner read the code. After making the purchase, payment takes place automatically through a credit card registered with the app. A first of its kind, Christie's New York's future auctions of 20th and 21st century art is expected to feature Claude Monet as a top lot. The painting is one of the artist's monumental canvases from his celebrated Water Lily series. Christie's New York 21st Century will start from November 7th. The internationally known 12 feet tall Little Amal, a 10-year-old Syrian refugee girl's puppet, has been deployed at the US-Mexican border. Amal, meaning hope in Arabic, visited the migrant families waiting for their chance to cross the border and finish their dangerous journey. The giant puppet will participate in events on both sides of the border until November 6th. Local vans known as matutas have been designed distinctively by local visual artists in Kenya ahead of King Charles and Queen Camilla's first state visit to a Commonwealth nation. Now, these local taxis are affordable and convenient with creative designs on them. Up next, a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Suspected gunman wanted in Maine shooting found dead. Residents of Acapulco are still coming to terms with the aftermath of Hurricane Otis. And pollution rising in Delhi to worsen in coming days.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live and I'm Preeti. Let's continue getting you more international updates. European Union leaders have wrapped up their summit where they called for civilians in Gaza to be protected and vowed to continue supporting Ukraine. Although they agreed on a joint declaration, officials now face weeks of complex negotiations over the bloc's long-term budget and how to source the funds for longer-term commitments to Kyiv. Alex Kadir reports from Brussels.
Day 2 of the European Council summit will focus more on the European Union's competitiveness and the health of the economy of the countries that use the euro as their currency, with Eurozone members having their own chats alongside the President of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, after rates were held in the Eurozone on Thursday. And Lagarde said that although the economy will remain fairly flat this year, the growth prognosis over the next few years is a positive one. But on Thursday, the main focus when the European Union leaders got together for talks here in Brussels was very much the Middle East, and there was a lot of wrangling over the language that would be used in the joint declaration signed by leaders at the end of the first day of their talks. Some countries wanted to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Others wanted to stress rather Israel's right to defend itself. But ultimately what the wording came to was an agreement that there should be calls for humanitarian corridors and pauses to allow aid to reach civilians inside Gaza, something that all European leaders agree is necessary. They have urged both sides to protect civilians, saying that that is the most important thing in this conflict, but certainly a difference of opinion when it comes to how that should be carried out. There were also discussions about Ukraine, with some dissent over how much future aid money should be allocated to Kyiv as it fights Russia in its war, but also discussions about the budget that will be involved in, with some 50 billion euros allocated provisionally for Ukraine over the next 4 years. Some countries like Hungary and the new administration in Slovakia saying that is not something that they are going to agree on. And of course, budgets require unanimity among all 27 European Union member states. Julia Chapman in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
The US and China are at odds over many global issues, but in a sign of improving diplomacy, President Biden did meet China's Foreign Minister Wang in Washington on Friday. But missing from the readouts was any confirmation that China's President Xi Jinping would attend the APEC in San Francisco. Caroline Malone reports from Washington on this.
Ahead of his meeting with the US Secretary of State Blinken, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said the two nations need to have dialogue to reduce misunderstanding and seek more stable relations, but that he's hopeful that the talks will be constructive. Wang is also due to meet National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on Friday. There's also a chance for direct talks with President Biden. The US and China have been ramping up diplomacy in recent months after years of testy relations. There was the fallout over trade tariffs, then a Chinese spy balloon over the US that was shot down, leading to a souring in relations. But in recent months, US officials have visited Beijing, and now Chinese officials are in the US. If it all goes well, it could lead to a visit from Chinese President Xi Jinping, who may attend the APEC Leaders Summit in San Francisco next month. And there could be a possible Biden-Xi meeting on the sidelines. Caroline Malone, Washington for DD India.
In another development, the Pentagon says a Chinese fighter jet flew within 10 feet of a US bomber over the South China Sea. The US has released video of the incident, calling the Chinese pilot's maneuvers unsafe and unprofessional. Nick Harper gets us the details from Washington.
The video taken from the US B-52 bomber shows the jet, a J-11, closing in on the US aircraft. This incident happened on Tuesday night in international airspace over the South China Sea. Now, the United States says that the Chinese pilot's actions nearly caused a collision. A statement from the US Indo-Pacific Command said that the pilot demonstrated poor airmanship and flew towards the US plane at uncontrolled, excessive speed. The statement described the pilot as flying in an unsafe and unprofessional manner. The US also said they were concerned about the Chinese pilot, that he was unaware of how close he was to causing a collision. The pilot was seen flying below, in front of and within 10 feet of the B-52 aircraft. It comes at a time that the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang is in Washington for meetings with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Both men say that they're committed to keeping dialogue open, aiming to foster healthy and stable and sustainable development between their two nations. But this incident is another flare-up in the already rocky relations. Now, there is a chance that the presidents of the two countries, Joe Biden and Xi Jinping, could meet on the sidelines of the APEC summit in San Francisco next month. Lots for them to discuss, potentially including this latest incident. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
The man suspected of killing 18 people and wounding 13 in a shooting rampage in Lewiston, Maine, was found dead on Friday. Now, with this, a 48-hour manhunt ended that followed the most lethal episode of gun violence in the state's history. The 40-year-old suspect, Robert R. Card, was found dead of self-inflicted gunshot wound. According to law enforcement officials, the suspect had a history of mental illness and was committed to a psychiatric facility for 2 weeks during the summer of 2023, after which he was released. Striking Hollywood actors have passed a comprehensive counter-offer for the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the SAG-AFTRA Actors Union said in a post on social media platform X. Negotiators for SAG-AFTRA and AMPTP, which represents Walt Disney, Netflix and other media companies, meet again on Friday. The latest counter-offer submitted by the Actors Union on Thursday comes after media companies and the union representing striking US actors returned to the negotiations table on Tuesday. Earlier this month, negotiations between Hollywood studios and SAG-AFTRA were suspended as the two sides clashed over streaming revenue, the use of artificial intelligence, and other issues at the core of a 3-month work stoppage. Residents of Acapulco are still coming to terms with one of the most forceful storms Mexico has experienced. As per the Mexican government, Hurricane Otis has claimed 27 lives, leaving damage amounting to billions of dollars. A looting incident also broke out in the city's popular beach resort, where people were seen carrying food, water, goods and basic necessities. More than 8,000 armed forces and its members were sent to help clean up the stricken city. The Group of 7 Trade Ministers meeting will begin today in Osaka in Japan. India's Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal will attend the 2-day-long meet. The minister will also have bilateral meetings with a few G7 countries, invitee countries and a few international organizations such as WTO on the sidelines of the outreach program. Trade ministers of G7 member states hold an annual meeting with the aim to meet current global challenges related to trade and investment and to set the course for a better future. A quick look at the other stories that are making it to the headlines from across India now. On the occasion of the 77th Infantry Day, the Directorate General of Infantry organized Veer Gatha Samaro at the Cariappa Parade Ground in Delhi Cant on Friday. A mesmerizing light and sound show, Saviors of Kashmir, illuminated the sky to commemorate the landing of Indian Army troops in Srinagar on 27th October 1947. Vice President of India, Jagdeep Dhankar, addressed the United Nations Forum on Forests, country-led initiative by India at Forest Research Institute in Uttarakhand on Friday. Vice President highlighted that sustainable development and containing climate change are essential to a secure future. West Bengal Minister Jyotipriya Malik has been sent to Enforcement Directorate custody till November 6th over alleged ration distribution scam by the local court. Trinamool Congress minister was arrested after the ED conducted search at his residence on Friday. Delhi's air quality was recorded in the poor category for the 6th consecutive day on Saturday morning. The city's 24-hour average AQI, that is air quality index, stood at 286. Graded response action plan stage 2 has already been implemented in Delhi to reduce the effect of increased pollution. Air quality of Noida also is in poor category with the index at 255. Also, in India's financial capital, Mumbai, the air quality is improving to moderate, but smog still engulfs the city. The city issued a government notification asking construction sites to use barricades and ban the burning of garbage. The move came 2 days after Swiss group IQA Air rated Mumbai with an air quality index to unhealthy category, making it the second most polluted city in the world on Monday. Let's talk about sports now. South Africa defeated Pakistan by 1 wicket in a tense finish to push their Asian rivals to the brink of elimination from the World Cup on Friday. South Africa bowled out Pakistan for 270 and then returned to overhaul the target, scoring 271 for 9 in 47.2 overs, with Aid Makram top scoring with 93 ball 91. The Proteas also topped the points table with 2 more points, and now Pakistan face a near impossible task to secure the semi-final spot. This was Pakistan's 4th straight loss in the tournament, and they find themselves struggling in the 6th position with 4 points after 6 games. That's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.